Hi, my name is Gary Bastoky. We're coming to you from Fayetteville Public TV Studios in Fayetteville, Arkansas. The name of my talk today is Navigating the Hearing World, a Personal Journey. I'm 73 years old, and I've worn hearing aids for 60 years. I have a congenital, bilateral, profound hearing loss. Hearing loss has been categorized by the World Health Organization into a number of categories, from mild, where people have difficulty keeping up with conversations, especially in noisy environments, to profound, which requires powerful hearing aids, and lip reading and/or sign language. I have profound hearing loss. I wear very powerful hearing aids, and I do lip reading. I don't do sign language. I received my first hearing aid at 13. I was lucky enough to have both speech and lip reading classes in grade school. My speech doesn't really fit my hearing loss, so I've been told by audiologists that I shouldn't be able to speak as well as I do. But this summer, I proposed a Zoom talk, which was hosted by the Schmeiding Center for Senior Health and Education in Springdale. It was geared for those mainly that were new to hearing aids, as well as experienced users, on how best to cope with hearing amplification. It was well received, but due to privacy concerns, we were unable to share the video. And I'm hoping this video will contain most of the same content, and I hope to reach a larger audience with it. And I hope that you'll benefit from 60 years of experience as a hearing aid user. A little background on me: for the past 35 years, I've worked as a designer in the tech industry, mainly in software. My emphasis has always been to make software easy to use and intuitive. As a user experience designer, we study and try to understand what our users' needs are and how humans perceive information. We have to understand psychology, physiology of memory and recall, basically doing everything we can to help you get your work done. So I have a big interest in perception and how we perceive information and how we communicate. I also have a BA in fine art, so in addition to being a designer, I'm a painter and photographer and craftsman. These tend to be solitary pursuits, and I've always wondered how much of my hearing loss influenced my life choices, and I expect probably a lot. Although I did well in school, in grade school, high school, it was mainly because I've always enjoyed learning in spite of the problems I faced in a classroom. I always had a lot of anxiety and was fearful of being called on because of my hearing loss. I wasn't always sure when if I was mishearing the question, if I was going to answer inappropriately. I also feared asking questions in class because sometimes I was uncertain if someone had already asked that question. So having a hearing impairment in a hearing world is sometimes tough. You get laughed at. It's easy to withdraw, even though it's not your nature. But I'm lucky my parents encouraged me to read very early in life because I spent a lot of time in the library and catching up what I was missing in classes and inadvertently learning more than the school textbooks had only glossed over. So, but that anxiety stayed with me in one form or another throughout my life. I've been going to therapy to help me come to terms with it, how to deal with anxiety better, because it's not going away. It's just going to be there. So I have to learn how to deal with it. I have workarounds and coping mechanisms that I've developed on my own, and I hope to share some of those with you. I can't stress enough that you need to be your own advocate or find someone you trust to advocate for you. This is really for your own well-being, both mentally and physically. We all need to communicate, and sometimes it seems the hearing world will just roll over us. We'll be left out, and we won't have the tools we need to succeed if we don't take the initiative to stand up for ourselves and get our communication needs met. So how many of you have had trouble communicating via phone? The tool that the hearing world takes for granted. I mean, you see telephone advertisements all the time. And before smartphones, I had to carry around an amplifier, a little portable amplifier that I attached to the headset. And in a noisy environment, it was barely usable. Often had anxiety again, but this time over what would I do in an emergency? If I didn't have my amplifier or it broke and I had to communicate with the police or the fire department or anyone, how would I do that? Now I'm wearing a Bluetooth streamer and my hearing aids connect to the Bluetooth, but I also carry around a headphone cable with a lightning jack adapter, one of these, to hook up to my streamer and be able to use the phone. Now my streamer has to be charged up every day. I fear that upgrades to the OS are going to break any connection that I may have with my streamer or my phone. So for me, the anxiety never seems to end. That's why I have to learn how to deal with it. One thing that I think is important when it comes to being a self-advocate is never saying, I'm sorry I can't hear you. Apologizing for your loss is saying to the world, this is my fault, and I'm sorry that I can't be normal, however you perceive normal. Instead, I say, I have a hearing impairment. I need you to speak up or move your mic closer if you're on the phone. If you're worried that you've become a burden because you need to ask people for a very simple thing like speaking a little louder or more clearly, you need to realize you are not your hearing loss. I'm going to say this over again. If it makes people uncomfortable, it's too bad. They'll get over it. If they don't respond, that is, they don't speak up or whatever, move on. They're not worth your time. It's not your fault. I've had what feels like a very weird response to my request. I've said, I have a hearing impairment. You need to speak up. The response was, that's okay. Somehow that makes me feel that I'm apologizing and they're giving me permission. I've often said, no, it's not okay. You're not paying attention. I'm not asking permission. I'm asking you to speak up. Now that sounds harsh, but do whatever you need to do. Now, I just said hearing impairment, and I wanted to make sure that I stopped here to say, I use hearing impairment. The accepted term these days is hard of hearing, or HOH. And personally, I don't really care for the phrase, but I prefer hearing impaired because, one, I've never understood what hard of means. It's an alliteration, and it's easier to say than hearing impaired. But we never use hard of to describe someone who wears glasses or is in some other way affected by physical loss. And so this is my own preference. I'm not advocating the use of either term. I just wanted to clarify that I'll use hearing impaired throughout the talk. Now, back to being an advocate. Most people with more than a mild hearing loss will at some point need to see an audiologist, and you should see an audiologist. Audiologists are trained and licensed professionals whose job it is to identify your loss and offer solutions to compensate. For example, most hearing aids these days are digital, and they can be programmed to compensate for loss of specific frequencies. Now, they're not just amplification, volume control. Making everything louder doesn't help. You may not require amplification in all ranges, And just amplifying everything can cause distortion and make your ability to comprehend speech actually get worse. So it's not volume, it's not just volume, it's comprehension. You should be concerned about it, and a trained professional can help you. Even with a mild loss, it will help you navigate your world better. There seems to be a stigma around hearing loss, especially for those who lose their hearing over time. It's scary to lose your ability to communicate, and a lot of people will deny it or withdraw instead of doing something about it because of this stigma. People seem to think it means you're officially old if you wear hearing aids, and it's funny because I got my first aid at 13 and I wasn't old. I was just hearing impaired. I quickly found out how much I was missing when I got my aids and how much I enjoyed hearing those sounds. You may find out the same, that you're missing something. So see an audiologist. Studies have shown that hearing loss, when not dealt with properly, may contribute to a faster rate of brain atrophy. Johns Hopkins studied 639 adults over nearly 12 years to uncover this sad fact. But despite this statistic, nearly 27 million Americans aged 50 or older have hearing loss, and only 1 in 7 wear hearing aids. Hearing aid users on the average wait 10 years before getting help. Don't wait. I would fear dementia way more than I'd fear hearing loss. Don't wait. I've lived in 18 different cities in 8 states and have accordingly seen a lot of audiologists in that time. They're one of the first connections I make when moving to a new area. I've often found that these are caring people who will go out of their way to help, even if I purchase my aid somewhere else. If I need a repair or something as simple as a tubing change and a new ear mold, I can usually count on them. But like any profession, some care about only the bottom line. And some will try to sell you what has the most markup. Don't assume anything. If you needed to buy a new car, you wouldn't just go to the dealer and trust them to pick out a new vehicle for you. You might accept a recommendation, but it really always comes down to is it the best fit for you, not the dealer. If you don't feel that the audiologist you are seeing is being attentive to your needs, pay attention to your gut and find someone else who will. I believe there are many more good to excellent professionals out there, but there are bad ones. Don't accept anything other than the one you feel comfortable with. To continue with the vehicle metaphor, just like cars, there's a range of quality and price range. After so many years of spending tens of thousands of dollars, literally, on very expensive power aids, I've become convinced that price fixing is really part of the game, and no one will look into it because the manufacturers will claim R&D costs, and that's hard to dispute. But that said, if you are going to pay a lot of money so you can hear and be a functioning member of society, you should be aware of the price versus quality issue. For my specific needs, there are few manufacturers that make hearing aids for profound losses. I don't have a choice. I can't buy a used Kia. I have to buy the new Mercedes with all the options. But you may have more latitude, so make sure you're happy with the sound quality. Do some research to find out about build quality, that is, how long they'll last before needing to be replaced. And don't assume that because your audiologist recommends a particular brand and model, that it's the one you should purchase. Make sure they have a return policy, even if you need to put down a deposit, and make sure that deposit is refundable. Read your purchase agreement. There have been many times where I've tried 2 or 3 different brands and models before deciding on the one that was the most natural sound and has the tools I need, like a streamer. So again, advocate for yourself or bring your advocate with you. Communication at home. Here's some tools that may help you. You need to be an advocate for yourself in all kinds of situations, at home, social events, at work. It's often easier to withdraw and feel sorry for yourself. I've been there. But taking a risk, a small risk in the scheme of things, being your own advocate and getting your needs met, really pays big dividends. And the more you do it, the easier it gets and the better you'll feel about yourself. I'll say this over and over. You are not your hearing loss, and you don't need to apologize for it. Tell your friends and family. These are the people who will help you get the positive reinforcement that you need, that you'll need their help. You will most likely need to remind them from time to time, but that's okay because you get better at it over time and they'll learn and there'll be less stress on everyone. Anger and aggression really often occurs when frustration levels are no longer manageable. If you don't take care of business in a calm and objective state of mind now, it will come out later in a form that's not helpful for anyone. So right up front, ask them to face you when they speak. This also means ask them not to talk to you from another room. Ask them to be patient when they have to repeat themselves. Do your part as an active participant. Pay attention, listen, get up and go into the other room if you need to. Use closed captions or other streaming devices, and don't expect others to share your volume. If it's too loud, check with your audiologist. You may need an adjustment. Don't constantly fiddle with your aids. If you find that you're adjusting the volume a lot, again, you need to check with your audiologist. You shouldn't have to do that. I'll share with you one of my own frustrations. I'm a very independent person, and I've learned to deal with a lot of different circumstances. I really don't like it when a well-meaning person steps in and feels the need to take the reins. If I'm with a group in a noisy restaurant, for example, and don't hear the wait person, I'm perfectly capable of dealing with that. I don't need someone to say, he can't hear you, or some other demeaning way of stepping in. I'll ask for help if I need it. You may have to train your friends to not do this. I've had to teach even very close friends and relatives that I will ask for help when I need it. I know they mean well. It's not my responsibility to go along with that, though, and it puts me in an awkward position. So make your needs known and be your own advocate and be independent. Now, communication at work, that's going to be slightly different. It's okay to tell people you need them to speak up. Don't apologize. Don't say, I'm sorry, I need you to speak up. Say something positive, and if you need to, explain why. Put yourself in a position where you can see the person's face clearly. Sound travels in a straight line, so if you can sit across from the main speaker in a meeting, say, that would be helpful. Even if you have to ask someone to switch places and explain why, like, well, I can hear better if I'm directly across from them. Do that. Put yourself at the center of the action and do what you can to control your environment. In a meeting, ask someone to take notes. I found this very helpful. And email everyone in the meeting afterwards to make sure everyone's understanding the outcome of the meeting. So it not only helps you, but it helps everyone to make sure you're all on the same page. If you're the one scheduling the meeting and you have options, try to meet in a small room and keep the meeting small. This will help you communicate better. If you're in an office, say on a one-on-one meeting with someone and they have their back to the window, it's harder to see their faces clearly because of the light coming in. So if you can ask them to close the blinds or move away from the window, you can explain why. I'm sure most people are accommodating. So remember, it's okay to be assertive. Taking care of yourself means you'll do a much better job. Being frustrated and angry will just mean stress and poor health. In closing, I wanted to say again and again, you are not your loss. I can't say that enough. You don't need to apologize. It's okay to be assertive. It's not okay to be aggressive. If you're not getting your needs met, either from your audiologist, your family, friends, or colleagues, or the person on the phone, you're losing out, and they're losing out as well. Disability means the loss of ability. It doesn't mean the loss of self or ego. It just means that some part of us isn't functioning at 100% compared to what society deems normal. It's actually more interesting to be different. You can understand empathy for real. You can learn new ways of being. You're the same person you've always been and more, because although you may lose something, nature finds balance, and what you've gained is often immeasurable. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Take care.